This is the GMologist, GM extraordinaire, the GMologist.
Hello everyone and welcome to the GMologist Presents. This is not an RPG a day offering, so stay tuned maybe tomorrow or in the next 3 days for the next batch of I almost said free RPG a day. That would be awesome. But RPG a day 2024, they're little prompts and you respond to them and you put out a little something, whether it's a blog or a video or a podcast. That's what I've been doing. So this is, I guess, a regular podcast. And today I'm going to talk about a couple games. This is actually I feel like a lot of games got canceled this week, which is kind of disappointing. And so like Monday, Reaver got canceled, and Tuesday, our Tales of the Valiant, which is doing really well on YouTube, got canceled. And then Wednesday, it was like crickets. I thought we were supposed to have a game, but I didn't hear from anyone, so I guess we didn't have a game. But fortunately, I did have a game on Saturday. It was a Warhammer Fantasy game on the Dungeon Musings channel, so I got to play in there. And it was more, but we haven't played for a month because the GM has been on vacation. So it was kind of like a catch-up for everyone and what has gone on before, what our options are, etc. So it's more of a lot of talking and reconsolidating and reevaluating where we're at and what we're doing, what we're going to do next, which I thought is always very helpful. But this game week in gaming has been bracketed by Amy's awesome birthday game on Friday, August 2nd, and our fantastic Warhammer Fantasy game on Thursday, August 8th. It says August 10th as I record this. So it's great. So I will talk about those games here. And after that, well, I have a special treat for you. I talked about the Horned Rat with my buddies, my home group, and they give me their impressions. So stay tuned for that. So yeah, on with the show, and here we go. For Amy's birthday game, we played this free RPG offering called Unnatural Disaster. Amy had wanted to play Ponies. My Little Pony is a role-playing game put out by Renegade Press. And this game, I guess I misread it in a way. And I proposed, because I think maybe some people balked on Ponies, but I had proposed a mashup. What if Transformers, My Little Pony, Power Rangers, and G.I. Joe existed in the same verse? Or at least there was a place, let's call it Metropolitan City, where all this existed. So then I proposed to my players, my regular group of players, that hey, you could play Transformer, Pony, G.I. Joe, or Power Ranger. So in the gameplay, we had 3 players. Amy played a pony named Jilly, who was a unicorn and was a telekinetic specialist, actually. Then we had a friend of mine play a G.I. Joe, and they played Antidote, which, if you can imagine the Cobra character Pythona might have had amnesia or her mind erased and showed up on the G.I. Joe's doorstep, complete with Python, that would be Antidote. So that player played Antidote, which was kind of like a commando type machete, but also a ranged weapon, and a snake named Jake. So Jake the Snake. I got to say Jake the Snake a lot, which was kind of funny. And then a third friend of mine, you've heard him on the channel. He plays in the T2K game, and he played a Transformer. And he played, I don't remember which Transformer he played. There it is. I found his name. The name is Downforce. So we played a Transformer named Downforce. So that is a pretty straightforward adventure. They're investigating. This is a spoiler for Unnatural Disaster. Again, it's a free RPG offering. And I think the intent was you could you don't really mash it up, and I'll explain some issues as to why. But what you do is you either run it as ponies, run it as Transformers, run it as Power Rangers, run it as a GI Joe team, right? So it's pretty adaptable. They tell you how to adapt it, what villains to use in each genre, which I think is pretty cool. So it'd be really fun to do, maybe as a pure ponies adventure. I guess it'd be more cartoony, whereas Transformers and GI Joe, well, ponies or Rangers would be more cartoony in my opinion, but GI Joe or Transformers would be more quote unquote serious. Well, at least Hasbro cartoon serious or Michael Bay serious, right? So anyway, I had a good time with it. We had a really cool. So it was more problem solving initially, and I think there was a lull in the action where the players didn't realize, and maybe I should have communicated this better, that they had to save a bunch of citizens and stop a bunch of troublemakers before we getting to the investigation of how this this big earthquake happened. But when we finally got to the earthquake, we had a really cool fight where I threw in GI Joes and pony adversaries. I threw in a Cooper's, a Diamond Dog, and some Parasprites, as well as some GI Joes. So they were like working together on this like weather machine that they learned had Cybertron technology. And it was a really cool fight with Amy's character like sneaking and running right to the machine and disabling it with her technology and telekinesis, and Antidote picking people off with her right range, but while sending Jake in to quote unquote tank or tie people up, or constrict them, and then Downforce being a force of nature, being a transformer and running in, charging and smashing things. So and then pulling out his Energon sword and even finishing off or tossing Cooper off the edge of this platform. So we don't know if they did capture the lead Cobra villain named Garnet that we threw in there, but Cooper, they threw him off the platform. So who knows? Maybe Cooper would come back if this game were to continue. So I think the mashup was challenging because all the games have something called story points. But GI Joe, being the first game in the base game, has story points. But then Transformers adds Energon points. My Little Pony adds friendship points, and Power Rangers has the Morphin stuff. And all these meta currency things complicate it, and they do different things. That was the only real challenge. Other than that, it's D20 plus another dice maybe if you're skilled, and roll a target number. There's edges, which is advantage. There's snags, which are disadvantages. I probably didn't use the snags as often as I should have, but it's okay. It's a fun one-shot birthday game, and it was really cool that we got some and when Amy went to go disable the machine, for example, she rolled a double crit. She critted a D20, and she critted her dice to roll on the secondary dice, which made it for a crit. So it was pretty fun. I think Jake the Snake was the hero because he took out one Cobra guy and kind of squeezed the lead Cobra adversary into submission. So, and I threw in some little things where I felt like Garnet recognized Antidote as Pythona and said, "Why are you a betrayer? Why are you betraying us?" So it was pretty fun. I had a good time. So yeah, that was the G.I. Joe game. I won't really talk about the Warhammer game that I ran in Dungeon Musings. You can check that out on the Dungeon Musings YouTube channel. But I will now talk about the Warhammer Fantasy game that I run, where we concluded Book 4 of The Enemy Within, The Horned Rat. Imagine if your dwarven companion had set up a timer for a explosion that would take off the top of the mountain and collapse it. Well, that's what the dwarven player character did in the last time we played. And by this time, I had stopped with about 18 seconds left to go on the timer. And it was very exciting. The dwarven character, Gerthon, was fighting on a bridge overlooking the mountains against the Malice, the leader, the Warpstone Engineer. I don't know if that's what they're called. Skaven Warpstone Engineer. And with him was Ulrich, the Silver Armed, fighting alongside him, boat hook in hand, fighting this guy, trying to finish him off. Meanwhile, the other player characters, Sebastian and Reginald, were trying to rescue the Lady Mage, Jana Eberhauer, the Deputy High Wizard of Middenheim. Curiously, they had known that she'd gone to Altorf with their former fellow companion Imric. Imric was nowhere to be seen, so who knows what happened to that elven mage. But she had been captured, apparently, her foot cut off, and forced to do work for the Skaven, and she was chained. When the player characters had arrived, she had regained some composure and courage and blasted a couple of storm vermin with spells, and now, so they had to free her. So Reginald took a shot and blasted the chain with his pistol. Sebastian, and then started running for. They're in an observatory with a balcony, and they can get out. They think onto the mountains because they know there's going to be a big kaboom. Sebastian picks up Jana and starts climbing up the ladder that's there, while Reginald kicks open the door and sees the balcony. And now we gotta get out of here. So meanwhile, Ulrich and Guthrun take down Malice. He comes to his feet using his fortune points because he's a big bad and he's got some fortune points. He wants to stay in the fight, but Ulrich hacks him down again, and then Guthrun smacks him with his shield and knocks him off the bridge, where he crashes to the ground, still barely alive, but out of the fight and out of the picture. So then Guthrun and Ulrich are like, how do we get out of here? We got to get out of here. They can see the sparks coruscating, warpstone, lightning sparks coruscating over the giant 180-foot cannon that has been built by the Skaven to shoot the moon Morislev, which appears near its zenith in the night sky, or dusk, I guess. And Guthrun and Ulrich do something crazy. They take a running leap and go tobogganing. They hit the slopes, rolled amazingly well, because we said, sure, you could do that. I hope you roll amazing, because if not, it's going to hurt. He did roll amazing, did Guthrun, and they are now tobogganing on Guthrun's Dwarven Gromrill shield down the slopes of the mountain of Kirik. They know explosion's going to happen. Ulrich is able to use his boatman and steersman skill to be the brakeman on this toboggan, and they're able to locate shelter and hide in a small cave right before the explosion. Meanwhile, Reginald also rolled amazingly well and finds a path, a goat path or something, down the mountain, but it might be too late. However, suddenly, out of the sky comes Morastra, him not joining in the infiltration of Kirik, but spending the day taming a wyvern. And he had broken the wyvern. He had met with the refugees that had escaped and then flown post-haste towards the peak of the mountain on this wyvern. He is able to catch up. He sees Ulrich and Guthrun sliding down the slopes as once they smash Malice into the crevice below from the bridge. And so he's concerned, but because he sees Reginald, Sebastian a little weighted down, carrying Jana Eberhauer. So he's casting a spell while he's riding, which is pretty amazing. As he has the wyvern swoop down, he is able to reach out and touch Sebastian, turning him into a griffin. The griffin clutches, or Jana Eberhauer, freaked out, but of course a mage, knowing what's going on, holds tight to the griffin as the griffin flies off as quickly as possible down the mountain. He tries to have the wyvern grab Reginald, but it fails. Reginald tries to grab the wyvern and has to reach out to the powers that be, whether they be foul or good, to help him reach out to grab the wyvern as it swoops down and takes off away from the mountain. There is a huge explosion raining down rock, causing an avalanche. Warpstone is flying everywhere. You can imagine the griffin and the wyvern dodging and weaving as the top of the mountain, full of warpstone and warp dust, is exploding everywhere. But the players make it to safety. I think I rewarded them because they've done so well in this last 18 seconds that I had Malice's halberd kind of stick in front of where Guthrum and Ulrich were hiding, still holding his hand. I had Malice kind of give them the reverse peace sign as they were sliding down the mountain to safety. And I think it was pretty satisfying for me. And then they're like, what the hell? How do we get down from this mountain, as they all regroup? But the adventure had a plan for that. And what happened next was sort of the deus ex machina of the adventure. So Baron Heinrich Toadbringer, in a dirigible coming from the east, after doing his sort of diplomacy in the east between Talabekland and Ostland, is coming back, sees the explosion, comes by, recognizes Jenna, recognizes the champion, his father's champion, Reginald, and says, yeah, you guys need a lift. So then they get on the dirigible, they collect their things, they fly, I guess, towards probably the picket first to re-get their horses and all that, and maybe ride triumphant back to Middenheim. So that was the end of the Horned Rat. I think is very exciting. Probably a couple of the two best back-to-back sessions that we've had. The infiltration of Karak-Skeeg with fighting and deceit to get to where they needed to get. Them releasing an imprisoned Skaven deposed warlord to cause a rebellion and a distraction. The dwarf finding this hidden space with racks and racks of gunpowder that he set alight on a 5-minute timer. Them rushing up the rest of the tower, finding a Yellow Fang human engineer, finding out how to destroy the cannon, and then killing him and dumping him in the molten warpstone as a failsafe, although I guess the explosion would destroy the cannon, and then rushing to the top, defeating Malice. Ulrich did take a crossbow shot at the big cannon also, and got a good hit, and also kind of displaced some or caused some issues maybe. So maybe Ulrich is going to be the one who decides that he's the one who destroyed the cannon. Anyway, the heroes busted up and defeated the Skaven's plans, and now ride off to victory, heroes of Middenheim, and probably the Empire. If the shots had gotten off towards Morisleb, the Warpstone moon, then it would have rained down Warpstone meteorites from this Moonbreaker cannon. I guess that's what Malice had called it. So it was a couple of great sessions, great group of guys. I think we're going to take a little break. We had on Star Wars Day, we had started a Star Wars adventure from our season 2 of our Star Wars ongoing Rebel campaign, and we might finish that book, or at least season 2, and then jump back to the last book in The Enemy Within, which is called Empire in Ruins. So it should be really fun. And I do have a special treat for everyone. I convinced the home group to record their thoughts about the Horned Rat and the Enemy Within in general. So you'll hear them. And hopefully it's kind of cool. All right, here they are. Hello, everybody. I have a special treat for you today. I'm with the home group. Y'all can say hi if you want.
Hello.
I won't give their names because, have to protect their privacy and all. You may or may not have seen some of them on my YouTube channel. And we just finished book 4 in The Enemy Within, The Horned Rat. Are we happy? Everyone looks really tired. We just had we just had dinner. We usually have dinner in our home group on Thursday. It's really cool because one of the people has opened their house, so we go there and we actually cooked the last time, or when we meet at Dragon's Lair here in San Antonio at the medical center, someone buys the food. So we always have dinner and a meal together, and then we play. So I'm going to ask these guys questions, and you guys can answer. And I think it'll be kind of cool. So, like I said, we just finished The Horned Rat, Book 4 in the Enemy Within campaign, the big campaign for Warhammer Fantasy that they redid for 4th edition. So, what did you think of it?
Great ending.
Yeah, the ending was good. It had some good twists and turns, as far as not necessarily seeing some of the threats that were actually out there.
To quote Fifth Element, big bada boom.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was really exciting. I felt like in the beginning that it was kind of slow. There's gonna be spoilers here, so apologies for everyone. You wouldn't be listening if you didn't want to hear about it. But if you are eventually going to play The Enemy Within or The Horned Rat, there are spoilers ahead. Although I would say that the 4th edition really has modified things so that if you have even played The Enemy Within, whether in the first iteration in the first edition of Warhammer Fantasy or the second edition of Warhammer Fantasy, it definitely throws some things in and advice.
Or the 3rd edition.
Or the 3rd edition.
They did it for 3rd edition.
Oh yeah, they did a 3rd edition with all the fiddly bits. And some of us here played some 3rd edition, which was interesting. We actually ran the 10,000 Thrones. So what did you think of the pacing then of The Horned Rat? This is, like I said, the 4th book. We've gone through Enemy in the Shadows, Death on the Reich, Power Behind the Throne, and now The Horned Rat. What did you guys think of the pacing?
I agree with what your take on it was. It was seemed very slow and plodding to start, but then it really took off.
It was much more investigative in the beginning.
Yeah, the first part.
Yeah, it was definitely a very large investigative section.
Yeah, and I think where it took a turn for you guys, and I thought it made it more interesting, was when you decided to intervene. You heard about that not exhibition, but the anatomy, the dissection, and you guys decided to intervene, and
we prevented the thefts of the
it
bodies.
really kind of. I think it would have been, unfortunately, it would have been slower because it's supposed to go in a certain direction. But once you stopped the plot to sabotage and discredit that anatomy viewing of a dead Skaven, I think it really. Yeah, so there's like a mini game in The Horned Rat where you have to get a certain number of points that show other people and prove to them that Skaven exist, right? Because in the Empire, although dwarves know that Skaven exist and they keep telling these manlings that Skaven exist, manlings don't believe them for some reason. It must be some sort of spell that the Skaven put on people and prevent them from doing that. But I think what was interesting, I thought the most interesting thing about the investigative part was that there was this like human cult that was working with the Skaven, and you guys also destroyed them and
We busted that cult
busted them pretty well.
Yellowfang.
Right. So then, like you said, the latter part took off. So almost the first half is in Middenheim, and then you prove to the leader of Middenheim that there's a Skaven threat, and then his daughter says, "Okay, you guys got some money, go fix it." So then the player characters go out into the wilderness, and I thought that was pretty exciting. So what was your favorite part of the Horned Rat?
The infiltration of the Carrick.
Yeah, I thought that was like one of the best sessions we've had. Is at the end the infiltration of
Unfortunately, it
Carrick.
was the session that Chase missed.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like the investigation, the mystery stuff. I think that's something that Enemy Within Warhammer in general books do really well.
Mm-hmm.
I think that
It's definitely intrigue.
it's a lot of the D&D stuff. Like investigations are not good,
Yeah.
but this is really good. I think that was my favorite.
What
Yeah.
you're looking for is they're not well raised.
Sure.
Well, I guess when we all become famous authors, But yeah, I think the investigation goes really well, and what I appreciated about it too is,
Actually, they dumb it down.
yeah. So what I think what happens in a group like our group, we've played for a long time, especially with one of the players we've been playing since like the early '90s, if not before even. But we've been playing for a very long time, so they kind of know my tells. They know what's going on, so they tend to move through investigations relatively quickly. Though there was that one time that I totally hoodwinked him in a Star Wars game.
Damn droid bastards.
But I think, I think you guys pick up the clues really well, which I think helps with the investigation. If not, it could be very, very slow and plotting. Right, anyone else? What was your favorite? So investigation, the assault on Karak-Skig. Anyone else?
There was two. I guess I'm a bit more selfish with that, just because one of my favorite bits. Well, one of my favorite things was when I almost died in the wilderness, and then my character got progressed now with his own story. Because I think out of all of us, we've all jumped from career to career, and it just had the story dictated. So
Or,
now we have our
character to
next part to it.
Yeah.
Or character to character.
I stayed in the same career in both of my
Yeah,
characters.
that and then honorable mention was when we infiltrated, I think it was a warehouse pretending to be sewer workers.
Oh, right.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah, because like
Yeah, that was
So this-
that was pretty good.
That was
this-
another good one too.
this player is a great. He even did so. Like he even had an incident where his like teeth got knocked out in a critical hit,
Yeah.
and then used that to infiltrate into this yellow fang cult because they had a tendency to pull their teeth out and put in like incisors to look like Skaven.
Yeah.
So it was it was an amazing bit of role playing in that session, and we were all chuckling about it. So I guess anyone else favorite parts? Okay.
I think that about covers it. I like all the social interaction we've done. That was this past one and this one.
Mm-hmm.
We've had a lot of working our way into the upper
Echelons.
echelon of Middenheim society,
Mm-hmm.
and just all the different interactions that have to go on different levels. Like not just social stuff, but you actually have to go do events with them,
Yeah.
like experience things with them to let them trust you and give you more things. So I think that's been fun.
Yeah, so along with the investigation, like the social stuff that really started in Power Behind the Throne, where the player characters become movers and shakers in Middenheim, right? There's two of them that are pretty much part of court, right? One is a champion to the Graf, and one is a law lord pro tem, right? Hasn't been elected yet, but is effectively doing those duties because someone has to do them. So, and then we have like a high level mage who's also a knight. We have an elite dwarven guard, and then we have a stinky merchant. So
He has his own business.
Sometimes quite literally the stinky merchant.
right. But it's great because the whole aesthetic of Warhammer Fantasy is that it's grim dark. You're like poor and barely surviving. Gold. I mean, now it's like money. You guys have so much money, which is very interesting. So,
I have a business.
all right. So
They
Well, last question then. What would you change? If there's anything you would change about the Horned Rat, or what would you do?
No, I don't think so.
I thought it was a solid.
Yeah, it was good.
For a written adventure, I don't think you could get much better.
Yeah, I mean, again, these players tend to go off the rails, so I have to ad hoc things sometimes. But I think that's the fun of it.
The only thing is, I might have is just have Ulrich phase more, but I doubt that's going to change
personal
anything.
decision.
That's not something to change in the story.
Fortunately, the player does not cosplay that. Let's just say.
Yes. Well, let's face it. He wouldn't have made the cut in the group if he
No,
didn't cosplay
that's
that.
true. Oh God, I'm not that far.
All right. Well,
Yeah, I think a lot of it, we kind of, especially like the investigative stuff and like just how we kind of move through it. Instead of, it hasn't felt like we've been kind of shoehorned into moving in a certain direction.
Carl's
It's
good
just
about
kinda-
not shoehorning
Yeah.
anyways.
We just kind of figure it out. So
right. Like case in point, like I mentioned earlier, when you so the way it's supposed to happen in the book is like this display of the Skaven body is totally discredited. But when you guys sort of said, I feel like we got to see what's going on there. And it wasn't even because you thought they were going to try to sabotage it,
Vince,
but because
you and I
you're
stayed and guarded the bodies
yeah
overnight.
We did.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's because like you were like, who is this doctor that's doing this, right? So, and yeah. Anyway, so I think it worked out really well. I think that was a great turning point. And then, like I said, I had to adjust things, and then you guys up the timeline, which is great. It makes for a better flow in the adventure than instead of it being plotting as it could be. All right. Any last thoughts? And what are you looking forward to the next one?
Well, my thought about this one is I think it was fun to go back to the same location later, because everything before this we've been moving through the Empire.
Yeah.
And it's fun. It's good to be back in Middenheim.
Right.
A couple of months later, or whatever it was, and then have those same characters interact again that we're already familiar with. And
Yeah.
Come back from one book to another book. Which I thought was
Yeah,
really good.
and I think that progresses too, right? Your interaction with the court, and that will progress in the Empire in Ruins, right? Yeah. That's the
Well,
next
that's what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to seeing how they escalate
Yeah, how is this going to wrap
the
up?
threats in the next book.
Yeah, and I know some of you here are like Warhammer Old Empire scholars, so this particular, the Enemy Within takes place during a particular point in history in the Old Empire. I mean, in the Old World, so which is very interesting. So there's a lot of changes, and what I think is cool. So it's almost as if the designers in this Warhammer Fantasy 4th edition have sort of used the Enemy Within as, okay, this is like the introduction to this, where we're setting this campaign world, because they are going to do like another role-playing game set earlier in the Warhammer Fantasy world. But then after that, then books coming after Enemy Within, for example, Salzamund, have taken the events of the Enemy Within into mind. And so it kind of works off of the big trouble that is going on here in the Enemy Within.
I don't know how they're going to do that old world thing. Like, it just seems like it should be a source book, not an old new
It's
RPG.
All I can think of is them saying like
It'll be a
having-
separate group that's writing it.
or having different directions that you can go depending on
It'd
which
be
you-
exactly like a different company making a Warhammer.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's like Imperium Maledictum and Wrath and
Versus
Glory,
Wrath
right?
and Glory.
Yeah. So that's what I think. Okay, well, thank you so much, guys, for this little interview. And now we're going to go on to, I guess, a little palate cleanser and play some Star Wars. I just have to add, also, I have since, it's been a while since I intended to record this kind of last week, and it just got put off. I wanted to put it out last Tuesday, but now here it is Saturday. But I've since played a few games since then, including, I think it's even longer than that. We played our Traveler Borderland run, but now it's becoming the sort of intermezzo, in between the Borderland run and whatever we're going to do next. So now we got to rescue one of Tulatoral's functionaries. You can watch that Borderland run and that ongoing Traveler campaign on the Kevin Madison Dungeon Musings channel. And then, unfortunately, both Traveler and Twilight 2000 did not make this week, but I was able to run a Hyperborea game and get back into Bloodlords, but I will talk about those in another podcast. And we got to run some Call of Cthulhu. I did some Pulp Cthulhu with a couple players, my wife Amy and BJ Boyd of the Arcane Alienist. Stay tuned for that. That'll be coming on the YouTube channel, but I'll probably talk about Call of Cthulhu. Anyway, thank you for listening. This has been the Geomologist Presents. I apologize for the delay in getting things out, but it's been a tough couple weeks or a week and a half. I don't feel super great, but got to get this out, man. Got to keep going. At least I enjoy doing this. So, but that's another story. Anyway, you can leave me a message, drop me a line on the Discord or at geomologist@gmail.com. I also have a SpeakPipe account linked to this podcast. My wife Amy does the cover clip art. The intersection music comes from a subscription to Looperman. They do little shorts, which is really great. And I have custom intro and outro music, so I thank the author of that. Anyway, I think we can call it here.
Until next time, good night and good rolling.